Welcome to Haunt Weekly. Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Crystal.
And this is Haunt Weekly, a weekly podcast for the haunted attraction and haunted entertainment industry. Whether you're an actor, owner, or just plain aficionado, we aim to be a podcast for you. And we're back. And one of the ways we aim to be the best podcast for you we can is by bringing on people who know a lot more than we do to explain stuff to us sometimes. Yeah. And we're doing that again this week. As we have Brooke Englehart of Svenpuss Productions here. And I got to say, I'm going to let you do most of the introduction yourself, but this is a really, really exciting moment for me. I'm really happy to have you on and eager to hear your story. So, Brooke, are you there?
Yes, yeah. Hello.
Hello. Hi. Okay. So, why don't you start off by telling us just a little bit about yourself, your background, what you do, and give the nice people at home something to hang on to here.
Alrighty, yeah. So, my name is Brooke. I work with a group of, I guess you'd say, actors, performers, and we go by Svenpuss. We've been traveling as freelance haunt actors since 2016. In that amount of time, we usually do about 2 to 3 guest spots across the country at various haunted houses. And then on the side, we also focus a lot on our costuming, character, and a bit on makeup. Not too heavy on special effects, but that's kind of mostly what we're focused on right now.
Okay, yeah. So full rounded characters, they come in costumes, it's already, so the haunt owners don't have to think too much about it. How do you promote yourself that way?
Usually it's word of mouth. Typically it's people that we know through different haunted houses, different connections, mostly conventions. It seems like Transworld and MHC have always been our favorite go-tos over the past decade.
I can see that.
So what specifically are your areas of expertise? What are the things you personally like doing the most?
Personally, I really like to make the actual physical costume character. I definitely think that's my favorite by far. The hands-on, working with fabric, sewing things together, distressing, all that.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. So how did you get started in the haunt industry?
It was just a group of kids during high school. Started working at a local haunted house. This is back when Transworld was in the Chicago area.
Okay.
And so then we would also end up going to Transworld, during March, and guest spotting at a local haunted house, Dream Reapers, that opened up. And that's how we started meeting a lot of people, professional haunters, and kind of started getting our foot in the door.
Okay, well, that's
cool.
Pretty cool.
So it was just a bunch of kids together. Was there anything in particular that drew you to haunting as an industry back then? Any moment of inspiration?
There were a lot of, obviously back then, a lot of different things inspired us. But, at the time to us, it was just something fun to do with our friends. It was kind of like a group activity in a way.
Right.
That kind of just grew into something, that we've kind of nurtured into something different over the past 10 years.
Very, very cool.
Yeah. Now, you actually got onto our radar when we were talking to Japes one time, who's a regular here. And he mentioned your twin costume, your Siamese twins.
Yeah. Yep.
So how did that come about?
So that was actually for the Miss Scary Midwest competition or pageant that takes place at MHC. So the first year I went, it was 2008. Got to see everything. The performances were amazing. Midwest Haunters Convention definitely caters to, I guess you say, my appetite for costuming and characters.
Right.
So the next year we were like, oh my gosh, totally have to, audition for the Miss Scary pageant and compete for fun. And it's been a good experience. And for that, so my sister and I, we worked together, we had entered and we couldn't decide who should enter. We were pretty her and I are pretty close, and we're close in age, we're close in a lot of things, and we're like, well, if we shouldn't both enter separately, let's see if we can enter as a conjoined twin. And they accepted it, and we won that year, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they
You have to split the prize.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody. I'm here all week.
So is it an actual prize or is it a trophy?
It was a few different things. I think the awards kind of change every year for the Midwest Haunters Convention.
Mm-hmm.
But that year we got a pretty cool little mini Bucky skeleton that was gold. I think there was a cash prize, and then the following year they give you free passes to the masquerade party and such.
Cool. So so now the little Bucky, the little gold Bucky, I'm sure spends time at your house and her house, right? You share custody.
It stays with me.
I see how it is. We learned something today. So what are some of the challenges you face when doing haunt costume? What are some of the considerations you have to take into mind? Because costuming for a haunt is obviously different than for a theater or doing just fashion design in general.
Right.
Oh yeah, completely. Truthfully, we've picked up most of the things that we like to take into account with our costuming guest actors at different haunts. I would say the first few things that come to mind, just as functional things, the temperature, the climate of where we're going to be working.
Right.
Yeah, a haunt in New Orleans would be very different than a haunt in, say, Maine or something.
Exactly. Yeah. The weather can vary a lot at different locations. So we try to take that into account. But if the haunt that is hiring us out has any requests, so if they have a specific theme in mind, or if their show is very limited in themes, or if they want us to work somewhere specific when we're there, we try to definitely cater to that. But that's definitely led to us making unconventional costumes that we try to make sure that they can different places and aren't too specific, so that we have some more flexibility with them.
That makes a lot of sense. That's really smart.
So when you're designing these costumes, sort of walk me through the process for designing and fleshing out a character. How does it begin? How do you build this out?
Do you build a story first, or you just have an image?
Or do you just pull out a sketch pad and go crazy, go nuts?
Definitely, we've tried a lot of different things to kind of see what we prefer. And right now I work with 3 other haunters. And that's kind of what makes Svenpuss as a whole. So all 4 of us, going through the motions, that we definitely prefer to focus on the image first. We're very image based, and then the character follows. Truthfully, pretty simple stuff. It's do you want to be scary and intimidating? Do you want to be creepy and gross, or do you want to be funny and entertaining and more dick?
Right.
And each of us kind of like to pull from 2 or 3 of those things. It's kind of something that at the core of us, we always say just pick 2 and then go from there. Though we all tend to kind of edge towards the creepy, gross, uncomfortable costumes. And then,
right.
It just builds from there. We always try to work with what we person. 3 of us are females. And so lots of times we typically stay away from the very aggressive, trying to be too intimidating, too masculine, because it doesn't work with our body shapes. It doesn't work with our build. And it's kind of counterintuitive to what people do up with body language. When they, if you see me, you're not going to be, afraid that I'm going to drag your body out into the woods or something. So I definitely try to take that into account with my silhouette.
Right. Yeah, I can see that, because I've gone through some of your photos and they're incredible designs, but I still think I would be scared because I think that it hits that line of both creepy and disturbing on a deeper level, even if it's not a physical intimidation.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said it before on this podcast, you're not likely to get me with a jump scare, or most haunters for that matter. You know what I mean? We're more at home inside a haunted house than we are in our living room, right?
Right.
But one thing that always does make me feel unsettled in haunts is uncanny valley stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things about like the Siamese twin costume that we can keep going back to because it's that awesome. Was that it's definitely gory and scary, but it's also doll-like, and you know what I mean. It's very bizarre.
Yeah,
it's really uncanny to me, and that's what I think I like a lot about your designs is that they seem to be. I don't want to say the word alien. That's not quite right, but foreign, I guess, not otherly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I know when Japes was on and talking about the first time you came out in that costume, the whole room went silent. He said he could feel a collective breath just being held because nobody had seen anything like that before, which is something that really interested me and why I was so glad to be able that he
and Japes has seen pretty much everything, so
yeah. It was like a switch. Why haven't we been using women in these types of roles more often? Because it's been I've heard from a lot of female actresses and that they sometimes are just put into mom or victim roles.
Yeah, it's either maternal, victim, or sexy.
Yeah,
you get those are your three roles you typically think of women actors being put in, and it's bull. I mean, it's total bull, and it's always so frustrating. Especially like I see this at some of the local haunts too. When we go through there, one of our hobbies when we go through haunts for the first time in a season is to count the women that aren't in one of those three roles.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's like a drinking game where you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, nobody would get drunk in this game in this area.
Wow, we've been playing this game for 2 hours and I'm still sober.
Yeah, exactly. But no, you kind of broke that mold in your area from what I hear, and which is awesome. So did you have any pushback from that front?
What do you mean by pushback?
Pushback from the idea that women can truly be scary. I find it doubtful given the obvious evidence of what happens when you wear the outfit, but it's still a question we feel obligated to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get more of that pushback in my daily life than I actually do in haunting, which is,
That's good to hear.
I mean, haunting I found for me and, I mean, not just the two other ladies that I work with, but all the other female haunters I usually, get to interact with. Haunting is kind of that liberation from any pushback where you can, if you take advantage of it, you can be, as scary or intimidating as you want to be, that maybe you don't get to be every day.
Yeah,
fair enough. Okay, so do you have any advice for women who are wanting to build characters that are more scare-based? Like maybe they've been acting for a while, but they're wanting to sort of break out and do more scare roles. Perhaps because, they haven't seen themselves doing it, or perhaps because the owners haven't seen them doing it.
Ooh, that's tricky. Because I know, I guess what's tricky about that is I know a lot of different haunts operations vary on how much control the actual actors have in character development, costuming. Some are very separated and specific that, it's like a kind of repeat cycle performance.
Okay.
Some people want their actors to develop that, So
okay, well, then let's pretend it's either an actor, the controlled one, or the owner is trying to get more women into scare roles.
Yeah, so
or with that theory.
Let's go. I'm going to go more with like the owner. If owners of, or owners, boardroom, actor,
directors, people like that,
yeah. That, they're looking for you. I mean, you can find examples of it, not just us. There are a lot of good examples of, women in different media senses, maybe not specifically just in haunting or horror movies, but, it really seems like to me, I always think fashion is a really good place. High fashion is a good place for people to start looking for references, for kind of uncanny imagery, things that maybe aren't specifically female. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because fashion usually like, I'm not saying like, I guess pop fashion, but more like avant-garde,
Right.
kind of like weird high-end fashion where it's not stuff that you can really wear daily anyway.
Yeah.
Like the giant pointy shoulder pads and
Yeah, really though, and like you see
Trapezoid
people
heads.
really trying to make weird shapes with their bodies, that aren't meant for daily wear. And then from there, I think most people, I don't know, when it comes to characters and actual performance, I don't want to say I've been doing the same character for the past 10 years, interact with people. It's the same improvising. I don't personally, subscribe to having different characters and kind of locking myself into roles. You just kind of play off of your environment and the people that you're interacting with to entertain them the most. So I think everybody kind of finds that in their own way, but I think, the costuming, the visual is the for you to be able to do that.
Do you have any suggestions or ideas for how to recruit more women into these types of roles?
Ooh, I think it's just only giving them those roles.
Yeah.
I've worked with a few haunts where, the crowd, the group of performers are dominantly female. That's typically a luxury I've had of working with crews that are, tons of small, petite, super scary women, and they do a really killer job because they were never expected to be anything but, scary and creepy instead of sexy.
That's awesome.
It is. Shoot, I just totally dropped my question. Oh, you made a point earlier that I thought was really interesting. You said you use the same improvisation. Obviously, you're wearing many different outfits. You're doing multiple designs. I find it interesting because, like, we could talk to some actors, like Japes talked a lot about this, how he switches characters very noticeably. Different haunts, different motifs. He does different things, and it's a very different process. But your idea and what you're talking about, and I think this is kind of cool, is being, having an improv system in place that can, sort of wear multiple outfits.
Yeah.
Wear multiple. And I think that's a really neat idea. So how did you come about developing your improv style? Was that just something you had naturally, or was it something you had to work on? I
completely would say that there's a function behind, different things. And the function for me is, guest acting. I don't think ever at a haunt have I, seen the same person twice, patron wise, or if I have, it's because I know them because they're haunters.
Right.
So for me, it doesn't benefit me in any way currently to, I'm not seeing the same patrons year after year and having to change up the show for them with my behavior. I'm traveling and hitting up, a bunch of different places for a night or two, every couple of years. And so it's like, I'm probably never going to see that person again. They're not going to remember that. They're not going to come in, next weekend with their friends again and see me. So I don't have to worry about it.
So you only work a couple of nights at one haunt per season then? And do you go to multiple haunts during one season?
Exactly. Yep. So we do multiple haunts in a season, but we try not to hit up the same haunts back to back. Just so that we can try, otherwise we would get in a rut and, just always go to our favorite places. And, then it's kind of defeating the point of traveling and trying to meet new haunters and interact with new people.
Okay. Yeah. And it's you're in a great area to be able to do that too. There are tons of haunts up there.
Yeah. The geography favors you.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question with that in mind is, what are some of the big fundamental differences you notice between haunts? You're being led into so many different homes, so to speak.
Yeah.
What are some of the key differences you see between haunts?
Honestly, the biggest key difference, I think, is patrons, actually. It's not even the haunts. It's the country. And that totally affects, I think, how people develop their shows.
Right.
And working in the Boston area versus working, in the Atlanta, Georgia area, two completely different types of people. I know lots of different people go to, haunted attractions, but the people like that, like Boston area, I feel like the crowds, they're curious, but they're cold. Like, they're super interested in what you're doing, and they're curious, and they're enjoying the show, but they don't react. But that doesn't mean that you're not, everyone there is doing a great job, but the people are just more reserved. They're not as reactive.
Right.
Where Chicago people are really reactive. Chicago people get very physical, very like, violent and, rude, pushy. And surprisingly, in the South, people are way more courteous and interactive and fun.
That's not a surprise.
I'm from the North, so, going to a place where people are nicer is awesome. You're like, wow, that's so nice.
I can see that. Out of curiosity, have you ever made it to New Orleans?
I went down there for the Legendary Haunt Tour. It was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Saw House of Shock and then 13th Gate in Baton Rouge. But otherwise, I've never actually worked at any haunts in Louisiana.
Okay, I was just curious.
How far out do you typically go in a year?
You mean like distance-wise?
Yeah.
It varies. We try to make our like Halloween weekend the one where we really travel the most. But I mean, we've seen haunts. We've kind of gotten East Coast, Midwest, and East Coast. Probably, maybe I want to say, again, Boston or Atlanta is probably the furthest area we've, kind of like went to, and that's about 15 hours from us driving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not so much worried about that. The distance, we actually typically try to avoid just being only in the Midwest for that reason, just to get a good distance and variety in our season.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said that patrons were the biggest difference. What are some of the ways they change the show? Like, how would you change a show for more reserved patrons like you see in Boston versus more active ones like you said you see in Chicago, for example?
I think I think the queue line is going to be the biggest place where that has an effect. In places where people are, a little bit more interactive and like calm and enjoying the show, not so violent. You can mess with people in a more kind of like intimate, interactive way. You can like, even if people want to take pictures with the queue line, they can actually put their arms around them and like, interact. And it's not, it's just it's an okay, acceptable thing. Or say, crowds in environment, you definitely have to have a restricted photo booth area where people aren't swarming in. And then the scare actors costume can create distance from the group if they need to. They have a little bit more control.
Yeah, that's very important for the safety aspect to know your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you do mostly line acting, you and your crew?
It seems like more and more people pull us and just have us work the line. It's kind of just like, then they don't have to worry about shifting their actors around too much. And most people, unless for some reason, like, a haunt got really, like their whole crew got sick or something, usually they already have those slots filled for their, throughout the season, especially like Halloween weekend and later on in the season. We show up, usually they're like, if you want to walk around through the haunts, free roam, work with the actors, just kind of, which is an awesome privilege that, it's fun both ways. I mean, I like being in scenes because you kind of, I don't know, I feel like you can between groups and process things where sometimes, being in a queue line is like super like overstimulating.
Yeah, you might know a thing or two about that.
Yes, I might. Yeah, I work front of house too. I have nightmares every season at some point about the crush of a line and having to deal with that many people, because when it's you against hundreds of people, it is super intimidating. And I don't care how I'm very, very comfortable with public speaking. I have keynoted conferences. I have no fear of talking to people, but something about that, every year I wake up at least a couple times in October, cold sweat, just sit straight up in bed. Oh. And that's yes. Ooh, you're right. It's a shiver, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you feel the weight of the world on you. But I guess one of the things is that you take confidence knowing that even when things do go bad, you're still prepared. And having that confidence that no matter what happens, you're ready is key to overcoming that. Because you can't work without a net out there. It's crazy. You have to have a safety net. So have you had any moments where things went belly up or things went wrong that were hopefully in a comical way, not like with a happy ending ideally?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, it could be the other.
Oh no, it could be some happy ending.
this is like a it's a really kind of simple, funny story. I got to witness it, like right there in the room. But it was cute in a way.
Okay.
The first time I actually ever saw get like accidentally punched, and not that that's usually a good thing, but it was my sister. She was kind of sitting up high. Her and I were facing each other, being very still. It was kind of like, and then she just started twitching a little when someone walked in the room, and it was like two younger boys, like they were like 10 and 13, and they just went through alone. And the little boy got so scared, and he just like his fist just kind of booped out like those like boxing gloves, like on a box. He was just startled, and he just started freaking out in the room, and he was like, she's real. Oh my God, she was real. I hit a real person. And he like started sobbing, and he ran out of the room, and then like, oh my God, he just punched me in the nose, and I was like, this happened, but he felt so bad, and it was so innocent, and you're like, oh, what a cutie.
I remember the pumpkin kid. They came to our home once. He had like one of those little plastic dollar pumpkins for candy. And I think he had candy in it. It was been trick-or-treating before he came by. And we toned it down because he was a little one. But someone came out and did the soft scare, and he booped him
with the pumpkin.
And no damage done, but candy went everywhere. So we got free candy.
Yeah.
So it's like, those things happen. We've been fortunate to not have any truly epic disasters. Most of the disasters are adorable ones.
Yeah.
Like that one. I accept the adorable disasters wholly and completely.
Yeah.
So do you have any good tips for people that are doing line acting like myself? Any suggestions or advice?
Again, it's something that I know it's something that not every haunt can have, and I'm lucky that I usually get to do this, but I always love doing a buddy system. It seems like most of the time when we kind of are getting our best scares in groups, like in queues or groups, it's usually when there's a couple of us interacting with a group. About buddy scares, like having someone that you can buddy with and kind of bounce ideas off of and ping pong the scare, where maybe one of you is, the distraction essentially, or the eye candy, and then the other one's kind of the one that gets to interact with people more. And I don't know, I think it's a fun way to entertain patrons without overwhelming them. Especially like I mentioned, we're typically myself and the group I'm with, we're not really trying to scare people. Like we're trying to freak them out a little, make them uncomfortable. We're not trying to get people running from us. Because they think that they're physically in danger.
Well,
and you definitely don't want to do what I did once on accident, where I scared away customers before they bought their tickets.
Yeah.
That
like rats.
Well, yeah, it was a very good scare. I was actually working the ticket booth, oddly enough, and I got stuck working the ticket booth. I was doing it in costume, and I discovered I could hide in this little wooden ticket booth. And so customer comes up, I pop out at my character has a cane and a top hat, bangs on the Lexan that protects the window. How's it going? They just turned around, they ran, got back in the car, and drove right off. Never saw him again. Whoops. Okay, a little too hard. Got to dial that down. I get it.
Like, that was fun for me. That was not as fun for them.
No, that did not fun for the haunt owner too. Who just missed out on $56 or whatever that would have been for that family.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, and luckily that was a slow night. But what about the house, Crystal?
No, it was along the same veins. Because you do have to find that balance.
Yeah.
In order to be able to interact and creep people out and put them on edge to actually go in, but they still have to get in the door.
Yeah.
Right.
And then and the main fun.
Yeah.
And the main function of a queue actor at the end of the day is to make the line seem shorter and more bearable. Because as someone that, like we've been to a couple haunts where it's like you spend 90 minutes in queue and it's the 90th longest minutes of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And queue actors break that up. They break the monotony. And they also, like Crystal said, put you in the right mindset. And some of that is being both a little silly and a little scary. You got to have a good mix there.
So what was the first costume you ever made? Like for anything?
Ooh, for anything?
Yeah.
for
Oh
anything.
man, I don't even. I mean, me and my best friend and her sisters and my sister, we always played dress up as kids. So like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of one. I mean, she just mortified me. She pulled out some pictures when we were like playing dress up, and it's like, we're like, oh, burn that picture. Get rid of those.
Was that one that you made, or was that something that you just had?
I mean, I would work on little things. It's kind of like as a kid, crafting didn't really seem like making costumes in a way.
Right.
Where now, like, I consciously, like, I'm sitting down now and I'm making a costume.
Yeah.
But then it was like in a pop girl band or something, and like, like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what was the first costume you made for a haunt then? Or for the purpose of scaring?
Or as an adult.
Yeah. Ooh.
With that different mindset of, okay, I've got to plan this out. I want it to look like this. And how close did you get?
I would say the first like real costume I made, it's technically, I guess, the second one I ever made, but I made it because I knew I'd be at a haunt, not just like, dressing up like a spooky goth chick.
Right.
But it was, I made I remember I made a sketch, and it was for Transworld. That must have been either 2005 or 2006 for guest acting at Dream Reapers. And it, I had like to look like I was bald. So, and then I was covered in like medical green puke and stuff. And it was, I had it because, I thought like, that's what I was puked up,
Yeah.
Mom spaghetti.
Yeah, it was so, it's like terrifying. Where I'm like, oh God, why did someone let me act in that? But that's you start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously, one of the challenges with haunt costuming is making the costume that actually survives the night and the season. What are some suggestions for that? Because that's something I know we've had problems with. Some of our costumes, not even making it the few nights we're open.
Oh man, that's like, so that's the hard thing for me. So I have costumes. I keep every costume I make, it seems. And I've had some costumes that are, really like delicate items in there, and man, they last. I don't know. I'm not too rough on my costumes. Yeah. Then, I mean, I was a wardrobe manager at 13th Floor for the past few years in Chicago, and working on costumes with like such a variety of like sizes and activity level that I'm not used to. Man, like some things that would rip, I would be like, I swore that costume was invincible, but somehow someone ripped it,
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I've gone through and like reinforced things, I've patched things, I've super latex, and I think I wonder if there's something to it, this idea that when something's like your own, you take a little bit better care of it versus when it's something that you don't see value and it's just kind of what you have to wear to work. They tend to get a little bit more beat up. So I know that's where I really value people making their own costumes or putting, their own like personality into it. Cause I feel like people take care of the items better and they cherish it. And, then they also warm up to it and act better in it when it's theirs. Cause they feel like they own it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Cause you put in all of the work on it. You want to take care of it and be able to use it again.
And you're going to feel that investment and that pride in it, and that will show through in your acting, as you said.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you mentioned having to patch things quickly. Do you have any tips for if you have a wardrobe disaster in the middle of a night that you're open for haunts?
Ooh, man, I definitely have had I definitely have like a little. I keep like a hit bag or kind of like a fanny pack on me that I keep backups of little things like, gloves, maybe like an extra layer, that like a scarf or something that I can wear along. Gloves. I always keep like a little, so that if for some reason I break a pair of my teeth, I can just pop another pair in. But I mean, again, that's because I've accidentally done those things and I'm like, nope, don't want to do that again.
Right.
So I keep like a little patch kit with me, but most stuff it's like you just have to have, like, say if someone splits their pants or something, it's like, and say it's something from the Goodwill and it rips or something, either having enough things in stock that you can back it up, or always wearing, your own, like wearing a pair of leggings or like gym shorts or something under your costume, so like,
yeah.
At least you're not naked.
At least it's like something, and there's something dark under there that, most of the time people aren't going to see it in the show anyway, unless you're say like in the queue.
Yeah.
Well, I know with my character, we have to buy canes by the
Gross.
by the grocery. Well, it was really funny. The very first time we opened, the very first time I debuted this character ever.
Yeah.
This is going back to 2005. Brought him out, did the hurry, smacked the cane on the ground. Very first thing happened, the cane breaks in two, flips over my head.
Yep.
Like, well, bleep. It's like, God damn.
So.
Kids in line. It's like,
You're like, whoops, dang it.
Yeah.
gosh darn it, the Hades. So we definitely learned some of the merit of the backup system there. I usually keep at least 6 canes every night because we buy those little cheap bamboo ones, and they're designed to kind of wear and break over time.
But I could see also that the scarves would be able to cover up a small tear in an emergency situation. So that's a really good idea to keep nearby.
Yeah, it is. I like that idea, and having
either that or duct tape,
Yeah, but the point remains, we were thinking like, do you do a quick sew? Do you quickly sew? But you're right, you're not going to have time in the middle of the night, even no matter how fast you are at sewing.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. So you're right, a scarf or some kind of wrap.
Yeah,
quickly,
safety pins maybe.
Safety pins maybe.
Right.
But yeah, that's about all you can do. You're right. That's a good point. I like the idea of the scarves that cover up any unwanted tears. And that's one of the things is when a haunt costume tears, is it really a tear?
Yeah.
You have to take a moment and think about that sometimes.
Are you actually, quickening the distressing process, or is this, a distressful tear? Which is?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just like going through the haunt building process.
If you're not exposed, it's probably okay.
Right.
Like a few times we put holes in walls on accident, and then, well, you know what? It looks better with the hole. We're leaving it.
Leave it.
Hole stays. Hole stays. It's fine. So yeah, it's just like that with costuming, and I guess that is one of the perks of haunt costuming in general is that you're not like doing high fashion. It's supposed to be distressed. It's supposed to be a little banged up and dirty and
there's definitely
and
room
bloody.
for there's room for those irregularities where it doesn't have to be your daily clothing, day ready clothes.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for someone who has no experience but wants to learn? Any tips about where to find tutorials or where to go to get the skills you need to make a full character costume?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I guess it's not a straight line kind of answer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like especially in the past year or two, there's becoming a good emphasis on costuming in the haunt industry, and not just like the large iconic, like all the way down to like the scene actor and having people fully costumed. And I think what's tricky about that is it can really vary, from just being like, hop on, there's some great forums that people can just get good general info on. Versus like full scale, like maybe you should go take a sewing class, and like if you're making things uncanny, that you maybe need a little bit more of a foundation, like that. So it can vary depending on what people are wanting to do.
Okay, so do you have any forums that you really like for that?
Oh man, I just started. I guess I've been following. Is it Haunters Hangout?
Yeah,
Facebook.
Hi, Brian. We're here again.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
That's not Brian. That's right.
I seriously, I sit on there like,
Sorry.
It's like I know so many people post so often in that Facebook group that it's like you could just like get lost in the comments, and like there's such a wealth of information there, and that's something that's always cool about most haunters is this open book community in most cases. Where people are excited to talk about what we do, and everybody, it's like you enjoy it. We all share this creative, Halloween spooky. It's cool that people get to share it. That's why it's a community.
And I owe an apology to Brian. He doesn't run Haunter's Hangout. He runs Haunter's Toolbox. My brain literally skipped a word you said.
Yeah.
But we love Haunter's Hangout too.
Yeah.
There's like several. I mean, there's
yeah.
mask making ones. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of cool stuff out there.
Yeah.
I'll say this: Facebook has been a boon for haunters.
Yep.
As far as like nationally organizing, because previously you had your haunt family, and your haunt family was largely isolated from other haunts.
Except for conferences.
And yeah.
Not everybody can go to those.
Yeah. But yeah, Facebook with these large groups like these have really made it so that it's a more communal experience, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really, really cool thing.
There's there's a lot of really amazing, talented, and, open haunters out there. And I mean, gosh, I think even Alan Hobbs actually recently corrected me on that, reminding me that, it's like time where, as you said, these kind of like isolated groups, and then the internet really brought a lot of things together, and people could, crisscross knowledge, and, it's a cool thing. It's a thing to be excited about and to be a part of, not to like withhold in the same way.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
And that is one thing I do like is we are not the Magicians Guild. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not trying to. In fact, that's one of the things I found very interesting about the haunt community is, hey, look at this awesome thing I built. And by the way, here's the 25-step tutorial on how to build it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see that everywhere in this community. It's like people will invest all this time and energy in designing a new prop, a new costume, a new scare, a new room layout, whatever. And they will literally lay out step by step, so even an idiot like me can follow along.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool thing, too. And I love that about this community. And it's not something I've seen else in other communities a lot.
It's like open source.
Yes, we're very open source community in many ways, yeah.
Yes.
And that's, I think, partly because we all do build on each other so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think we all, I mean, even though I typically travel, so I don't necessarily spend a lot of time at one location, but everybody kind of runs into the same problems, and so it's like, well, people are going to come up with different solutions to the same problem, and that's a cool thing to share. That it's actually more efficient, probably, like an information hoarder, and you can learn stuff by people trying what you did, and they can improve it, and then you can improve your own situation.
So it's the scientific method of haunt building.
Yes, this is the theory. Just prove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. I like that idea a lot, actually.
Yeah.
So, real fast, we got about 10 minutes or so left.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the talents you think are really necessary for someone to be a good haunt actor?
Ooh.
What would you look for in someone? You go, that person would be great in a haunt.
Or someone to join your crew.
No, even join your crew, yeah. You're recruiting a new member in your mind now. What are you looking for?
If I were recruiting, I'd want them to be bald, because that makes it easy.
Yes, it does.
Personal bias.
Oh, yeah. God, now I feel so bad.
No, I completely agree with you, though. Having done makeup on people with hair and my dad who's bald, yeah,
you're bald. Your dad is like a blank canvas.
Exactly.
It's great. I totally have that bias. One of the gals that I get to work with, Lexi Lanham, she's bald. She does not have hair, and it's awesome. It's great. But really, I think a lot of it, I mean, there's so many different people that can, take something about them, scary and weird and unconventional. And I think it's just, truthfully, it's a willingness to try something, or to, man, I've seen, you see them and you're like, man, they're like nervous, they're uncomfortable. There's nothing about them that wants to be doing this. But once kind of people, it's more in their head, it's a headspace.
Right.
And once they find that capacity to kind of like let go of some of those walls that we tell ourselves of how we're supposed to behave, that's what makes a good haunter.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a weirdo every day. I like to be, but you don't have to be. You can be super conventional and then just have that ability or that intelligence about yourself to behave differently and do it in a safe, kind of controlled way that can be really good for you as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's cathartic,
really
as they say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
not
one thing
there's not like
sorry.
a specific thing, it's not like, well, you got to be over 6 foot tall or it's not going to work. It's not like there's not like a golden rule, I don't think, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing that I found to be oddly consistent is a lot of the good actors we've seen, at least, are people who hate going through haunts as customers. They love working behind the scenes. They love that power. They love that. But they hate being customers. They hate being scared. But they love the other end of it. And they're very passionate about that.
And they're also usually people.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
And
I think one thing that is very true, and this is something that we were talking about earlier, was they are very honest about their weaknesses. Because every actor has them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you talked about how you can't physically intimidate anyone. And because of your size and your frame. So you go for a different approach. You take a different tack. And I can't physically intimidate people either, usually when I act. So I usually go a more stealthy route. I'm the guy that likes wearing the black morph suit and jumping through the woods like a moron.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun to me. But so, everyone being able to look at yourself and go, I'm bad at that. So let's play to my strengths. I think that's something that, because there are some actors who, God bless them, insist upon doing what they think is fun, but they're just not good at it.
That's true. Well, something that I done in my haunting that it's kind of like left a good stain in my mind. It's a couple good friends from the Chicago area, and they always joke with us when we'd come guest act with them. Their names are, I'm just gonna say names, Andrew Martingello and Pete. Gosh, I don't even know Pete's last name. Sorry, but
that's okay.
Sorry, Pete.
But they do really cool work, and they are some of the most talented actors, performers that I've ever worked with, hands down. And they would always joke they had a really good game that they'd play about, like, as actors, like, what's your crutch? What's your weakness? And they'd be like, okay, don't act with that tonight. Like, oh, you always have to have blood? Don't use that tonight. And that was something I think that was a really healthy.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, for like more like, because for me, I was like, nope, this is my crutch. I am not bringing this into the show with me, but them thinking that way to me was always really like inspiring. And I do think about that all the time. Like, man, what's the thing I depend on? Well, okay, I can depend on it and I use it and I have fun with it. But man, what would I do if I didn't have that? Like, what do I do now? And it kind of, even if you choose not to do it, but just to kind of challenge yourself and, where you're not necessarily using your weaknesses, but you're also not depending on your, your performance crutch. That's it's a hard thing. I'm not very good at it.
But it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
It is a great thing to keep in mind, actually. I really like that idea.
Yeah, I think it's also very good to be able to take critique, helpful critiques, not just I don't like that and not give any reason why not, but be open to changing. Yeah.
And I think that idea, you talked about what's your crutch, I think that's a really, really good idea, because you are right that we as actors, because we only work so many nights, we develop like our own juju, our own superstitions almost, where we think we have to have these things to be scary, and the risk of not having it is too high, because there's not always just tomorrow,
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's like the opposite of like a baby toy. It's like, oh, this is my thing, my lucky thing that I bring with that. It comforts you and kind of brings you into your character.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could also see it bringing complacency, and not a willingness to try new things if you get too dependent on that crutch.
Yeah.
So would Bernie's crutch literally be his cane?
Yes.
Like a literal crutch.
Yes.
A literal crutch. Just to realize that.
Yes.
For that character, that's what I would say is the crutch.
Yeah. I would too.
I think we are just about out of time. We've about hit the 50-minute mark. Are there any? Take a moment, tell people where they can find you on the interwebs, Facebook, and all that stuff, and let people know just how to get in touch with you if they want your services.
Yeah. So, I definitely think we have Svenpuss Facebook. We have our website. It's just svenpuss.com. That's SVENPUSS.com. That has all of our contact information. We go to conventions regularly. We'll be at first convention at the beginning of June. We go to Transworld pretty much every year. But yeah, that's, usually email or talking to us in person is the best way to contact us. Whether it's for costuming or performance seminars, we like to meet new people and try, working with different crews. So that's always welcome. Those are the best places. I mean, you can always hit up one of our personal Facebooks or something, but we're just probably going to message you back from Svenpuss.
Well, it's like we said, Facebook has been a boon for our community and has made us a more national and global community, I believe, than we were previously. But anyways, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a real pleasure having you on board. And I know we could talk for another hour. We're going to have you back again sometime. I'm sure there's tons more we can ask. And we're going to hang up and immediately think of the next 20 questions we should have.
Yeah, I already have the one, but it's okay.
Well, okay. We got a quick one?
Well, I don't know how quick it is to answer.
Oh, God.
But it's, where do you see the future of Svenpuss Productions?
Oh, good one. That is a good one.
Ooh, that's tricky.
And that actually follows the information naturally. It's a good closer. That's good. It's good. Crystal, who are you?
I mean, pretty simple right now. We're really focused on, we've done small commission, limited costuming. And right now we're really focused on vending. It's going to be our first year selling costumes to the industry. And, we're pretty excited. Myself and Lexi have been working on a lot of stuff. We've got a lot of close friends that are very supportive and, motivating. They're just like, just do it. It'll be great.
Yeah.
We're lucky for that. And, we're definitely focused on small batch, high quality items, not anything super mass produced. And it's turning into a fun thing. We're making a lot of pieces that we love that we're, excited to share and hope that people can enjoy. So
that sounds awesome.
Sounds awesome, huh?
Yeah.
Sounds like a bright future.
Yeah.
Well, that's
cool.
Plenty. That's a great future.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for joining us. It was so great having you.
Yeah.
Once again, this is Svenpuss Productions.
Yes.
Where to learn more on Facebook. Thank you again. And once again, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Crystal.
And this was Haunt Weekly, episode number 78. And we will see you guys next week.